to Creation Magazine Live. On this program, we are looking at Creation Magazine and exploring some of the articles there that have changed people's lives for more than 30 years. Faith-building information through this magazine.
That's right. And it's funny, some of the articles that are in there, you might not think, well, you know, you're a Christian ministry. How does this all relate? You know, we're going to talk about petrified wood today, but you know,
right.
It all comes down to what you really believe about history, whether the Bible can be trusted, you know, the way scientific information is interpreted. So and we'll go through it, but we'll talk a bit about that, because sometimes I think people don't get the link between, okay, you're a Christian ministry, you're trying to uphold the authority of the Bible, you're trying to, you know, share the gospel.
Yeah.
You
Why
know,
don't you talk about more spiritual stuff?
Exactly.
Why talk about rocks?
Exactly.
But the point, of course, of the whole ministry of all of Creation Ministries International is to make the faith real,
right,
so that it relates to things like animals and plants and rocks and trees and history and everything.
Because if God created and the history of the Bible is true, then the world should reflect that reality. Right?
Whatever worldview a person has, that worldview has to explain every observation, everything.
Yeah. So this is from volume 28, number 3, which is the June issue, the 2006. And it's Wood Petrified in Spring. Creationist rapid claim recognized. This is by Taz Walker. He's a senior geologist in Australia.
Australia, yes.
Secular research at a hot spring in Japan shows that wood can turn into stone much faster than geologists previously thought. The belief that fossils and rocks petrify over millions of years is part of modern culture, like microwave ovens and jumbo jets. We're constantly fed the idea through newspapers, magazines, museums, and textbooks. Like sticks of chalk in colored water, people have absorbed the notion that fossils are millions of years old. And I hear that and see that all the time. As soon as you talk about, you know, fast fossils, people go, what are you talking about? Doesn't it take millions of years old, or millions of years? But the idea is false, and wrong ideas have bad consequences, sometimes serious ones. Creation Magazine often surprises readers with real examples of rocks and fossils that formed rapidly. Surprises because they contradict popular belief. Like removing dye from a stick of chalk, it's not easy to remove a powerful myth that colors someone's perception of Bible history. Recently, 5 Japanese scientists published more real examples of rapid petrification, confirming creationist claims. Even more unusual, their report to a secular geology journal quoted an article by Dr. Andrew Snelling from Creation Magazine. That was very interesting. The scientists, led by Hisatada Akahane, studied a small lake cradled in the explosion crater of the Tateyama volcano in central Japan. A mineral-rich solution gushes from the bottom and fills the 15-meter pond with steaming acidic water. It cascades over the edge as a waterfall. The scientists found that the naturally fallen wood in the overflow was hard and heavy because it was petrified with a mineral called silica. Yet the wood was less than 36 years old. As an experiment, they fastened pieces of fresh wood in the lake with wire. After 7 years, the wood had turned into stone, again petrified with silica. 7 years. Under a powerful microscope, they saw that the silica had deposited like opal as tiny spheres smaller than the diameter of a human hair. It filled the pore spaces in the wood and covered the cell walls. Silica deposited in the same way in the naturally fallen wood and in some wood found in nearby volcanic ash. Hot mineral-rich water had soaked into the spaces in every case. Their study confirmed that under suitable conditions, wood can turn to stone in 10 years or less. This clears away one powerful objection to believing the Bible. It means that the rocks and fossils we find on the earth could easily have formed in the 4,500 years since Noah's flood, and conditions would have been favorable for petrification because there was plenty of volcanic activity and mineral-rich water at the time of the flood, of course.
Right.
So just another article that overturns, like Taz used the example of, you know, it's like dye in chalk. It's hard to get these concepts out of your head. I know it certainly was for me. Growing up, everywhere I looked, on TV commercials to movies that I see or saw, you know, and certainly in my schooling, it was always millions of years, millions of years, millions of years, millions of years.
So ingrained in the culture.
That's right. But it doesn't take millions of years. It takes the right conditions.
Right. It takes a certain chemistry, perhaps a certain temperature.
Yeah.
That's in some other examples that it might be, but it's mostly chemistry.
That's right.
And water.
Yeah. So why is that important to a Christian maybe to have that information? Well, because millions of years, many Christians have come to accept millions of years because they think, well, it's science. The scientists have proven millions of years.
Millions of
no,
years.
they haven't. Yep. Many of these ideas came from an atheistic worldview, to be honest, or a naturalistic worldview anyway. And now it's become just, well, everybody just believes in millions of years. Well,
Right.
no, you didn't get it from the Bible. Let me put it that way. You don't get that from the Bible. Interesting that the bottom of this particular article, because of course, creationists have a way of explaining things, but so do the evolutionists. And you'll see this back and forth all the time where, I've seen where I've presented on something and somebody will say, yeah, but the evolutionists say this. And, well, yeah, but we say this. Like,
yes,
obviously
yeah.
there's rebuttals to each other's arguments and stuff.
And the articles go up on the website, and this one's up on the website, and then people see it, and they write in. And actually, we've got every Friday on creation.com. You can go back in the feature article archives,
right,
and there's a Friday feedback section. Generally on Fridays, we take one of those feedbacks that has come from somebody who's read an article like this, like this notion that wood can fossilize or petrify quickly.
Yep.
And they've said, well, no, it can't, and here's why, and here's why. And we on Fridays, you can see where our scientists or speaking staff have responded to that supposed rebuttal to one of the articles.
I find, here's what I found. Someone proposes an argument, someone rebuts that argument. If you stop at that point, sometimes I find people go, oh, well, there's a rebuttal to the argument. But it's not whether there's a rebuttal, it's whether there's a good rebuttal to the argument. So I find that it's when this person gets to defend their position that you actually see, because then you can really see the depth of the argument or not.
That's exactly the purpose of the Friday feedback section.
Right.
You can see how the rebuttals are rebutted.
Right, they stand up, right?
Yes.
So right at the bottom of this argument, they put objections about rapid petrification answered. So one of the objections was, well, geologists already know petrification can happen quickly. It's misleading to say that rapid petrification is a surprise. Well, no. It may not be surprising to some geologists, but obviously the scientists who worked at this, why did they do the experiment of putting the wood in the water, and why did they say, wow, it turned to stone in 7 years? That's a bad argument.
Yes.
Most people are surprised by this information, and even many geologists are surprised by it. So it's the public perception that reinforces millions of years. That's a bad argument. Examples of rapid petrification do not prove that the world is young. We didn't say it did. But the concept is, they prove that millions of years are not needed. Right? If you're going to believe in millions of years, you should have a reason for believing in millions of years. Commonly, one of the reasons was, well, it takes a long time to make a fossil or for wood to petrify or something like that. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Now what's your reason for believing in millions of years?
Right. And that's consistent with the Bible. No, it doesn't prove that the earth is young, but it's consistent with that.
Exactly. Here was another one. The wood was still present, so it was just permineralized. Petrification requires the wood itself to be replaced slowly by another mineral. Well, when wood is replaced by another mineral, it's called replacement. When the mineral fills the cell spaces but does not replace the cell walls, it's called permineralization. Petrification is often used to describe both processes. Even so, it does not need millions of years for wood cellular material to disintegrate and be replaced by mineral. All chemical processes depend simply on the chemical and physical conditions. So, again, it's a bad objection. It's the situation that the wood's in rather than the time involved. Time is not you don't wave your magic time wand and prove that things can happen or millions of years can happen or
and
whatever.
In this case, it's not a necessary ingredient to petrifying wood.
That's right.
It's just another example of something that fits with the Christian worldview. Wood can be petrified rapidly.
Right.